Good morning, HSM. What a lovely morning it is. I know it's not sunny. I know it's not perfect outside, but hey, it still can be a great morning. And it's so good too. Well, I don't actually get to see you, but I'm pretending that you're my camera, so I'll just pretend that I'm seeing you right now. But it's so good to see all of you. Hope you've had a great week. And maybe if this is your first time watching us, my name's Ryan. I do the high school group here at CPC, and I hope that you feel welcome to our virtual service today. And there's not a ton going on right now, at least with HSM as far as announcements go. Let's see, what happened this week? Oh yeah, we have a new president officially. So that this week, I feel like this week has been very long. That was Wednesday. We had the inauguration of President Biden. So that's a big event in our country. But we've got there's just a lot still going on with all the COVID stuff. We had a big old crazy windstorm this week. That was this week too. Man, there was just a lot going on this week, I guess. I'll be honest. There's a lot going on, but there's a lot at the Hodges house that is also just kind of in my head. And for those of you that maybe you don't know, my wife and I are expecting our second child. This week. So this will be my last Sunday of January. I'll be back in a couple of weeks, actually on Valentine's Day. Assuming everything goes well with the baby and the birth, I'm going to take a couple of weeks. I'll be here all week this week, except for life groups, which you can join on Thursdays. But I'll be gone for a couple of weeks, and I'll be back. You'll actually see me next week because I did record the message ahead of time. So you'll see me next week. I really, and I could say that a lot of times, but I really liked the service, the messages that we have for this month, and I just really wanted to teach them. So I recorded them all ahead of time to get ready for what was to come. So we're excited and a little bit nervous, as I'm sure you expect, but we're excited for everything. Hey, hi Ilana, thanks for saying hi in the chat. Great to see you in there. And I don't know. I don't have a ton. You'll see me next week, but you won't see me on Thursday. Speaking of Thursdays we've got life groups, and they're 7:00. Even when I'm out for a few weeks, the leaders will be taking turns hosting. So for life groups, we have the link down there in the description. You can sign up for that, and I'm gonna make sure I add in as well the Zoom link. So if you just are like, I don't really know how to sign up, or I don't know what to do, you just can click on, I'll put the Zoom link in the description later today to make sure you can do that. Another thing that I've added as well is, just with the stuff starting in the first week of January, I have added timestamps to these services. I have to do it after because we do it live, but I want you, if maybe you don't have time to watch the whole thing, or you don't want to listen to me blabber on in the beginning, I'll put timestamps in, so if you just have time for some worship, I'll put that in there, and then you can kind of click through the video to just watch what you want and have time for. Because I know you guys are all super busy, and I feel like all of you that I talk to, all of you say that you're almost more busy now not going to school. Like your teachers keep giving you more and more and more and more work. And Ilana, thank you. I'm excited for our child, our little boy. We have a name, but we're not gonna say. We'll tell you guys. You'll probably see it on Instagram. We'll show it to you there. But yeah, so life groups are continuing. So we're gonna keep doing life groups. The leaders are gonna take care of all of that. Our awesome leaders. If you haven't joined life groups, and I know it's a new year, and you're like, well, maybe I can't fit in. Jump on in. It's a great time to get to know some of your classmates. Get to know some of your other HSMers. So join us Thursdays at 7:00. I'll put the link down in the description for all of you. I'm trying to think. I don't think there's too much else going on, if I'm being honest. This week has been, I would say it's been hard too, because I mentioned it last week, but so many of like pictures from Hume last year are popping up in all my memories and my time hops. And I miss that time that we get to spend together. It doesn't have to be at Hume, just what we did last year, but I miss that time that we get to spend together as a group, as a family, as a church family. So I am looking forward to at some point. Right now we still have camp on the schedule in the summer, so that's the plan. But yeah, and then also today we're going to talk about fear, and yeah, I mentioned this in the message last week, but we're talking about 3 different emotions. Last week we talked about anger, fear this week, and spoiler alert, but we're talking about guilt next week. And they're all things that I've really gone through in my life. And so it's like these things are like, this is why I wanted to teach it, because there's so many things that I've dealt with, whether now or in the past. And so I've been really excited about what these messages are and how much they've helped me as I've been kind of learning through here. So yeah. Anyways, I realized my background music just stopped working. Anyways, you don't need it. Anyways, but I'm excited for the message today. Stick around after the message, and I have some awesome outtakes from my recording time that I'm sure you will enjoy. So we're gonna go ahead and head into a time of worship. So I really appreciate our worship team, and this week we got an old one coming up and it's Sinking Deep. So take some time and reflect on the words and sing along if you want. Why not? I think your parents and your siblings would love for you to shout out some worship as you watch. So I will see you after the message. So we'll hop right into the message after that, and let's head into a time of worship.
Standing here in your presence, in a grace so relentless, I am won by perfect love, wrapped within the arms of heaven, in a peace that lasts forever, sinking deep in mercy. See, I'm wide awake, drawing close, stirred by grace, and all my heart is yours. All fear removed, I breathe you in, I lean into your love. Oh, your love. When I'm lost, you pursue me. Lift my head to see your glory, Lord of all. So beautiful. Here in you I find shelter, captivated by the splendor of your face. My secret place, I'm wide awake, drawing closer by grace, and all my heart is yours. All fear removed, I breathe you in, I lean into your love. Oh, your love. Your love so deep is washing over me. Your face face is all I seek. You are my everything. Jesus Christ, you are my one desire. Lord, hear my only cry, to know you all my life. Love so deep is washing over me. Your face is all I seek. You are my everything. Jesus Christ, you are my one desire. Lord, hear my only cry, to know you all my life. I'm wide awake, drawing close, stirred by grace, and all my heart is yours. All fear removed, I breathe you in, I lean into your love. Oh, your love.
Have you ever really wanted to do or try something, but you just couldn't convince yourself to do it? Or have you ever been so scared to fail at something that you don't even try? The line I think of is, there's no point to even trying it. I can't do it anyways. This reminds me a little bit of like how kids eat, or more specifically how Lorelai tends to eat. We'll make some food that isn't, well, mac and cheese, or what she calls it, bunny pasta, no matter what kind of mac and cheese it is. And we offer it to her and she just says, I don't like it. Not once in her life has she tried this food, but her fear of something tasting bad takes control. Heck, we can do we can do that with food too, right? Like, you can be like, oh, I don't want to try that. I don't like it. But you never tried it before. We'll start making what we've tried to do with Lorelai, at least, is try to make her try a bite at least. And if she doesn't like it, she doesn't like it. But soon she realizes that most of it does taste pretty good and she wants some more. This is more than just a food thing, though. This is, I should try out for the baseball team, but I'm scared of looking silly if I mess up. Or, I shouldn't apply to that school. There's no way I can get in, and I don't want to be rejected. Or, I shouldn't ask that girl out that I've had a crush on for months, because I just don't want her to say no to me. And that one is me in high school. For sure. Heck, me in college. Here's the thing, though. As we're in another week of this series called Vibes, vibes are like emotions. And the thing about emotions is that we all experience them in our lives. And sometimes without us even realizing it. Those vibes can end up controlling us in a way that isn't healthy. Whether it's keeping you from hanging out with those people or getting so messed up that you trip up at a track and field meet. It happens. We end up being controlled by our vibes. And today, I want to talk about one vibe that fights to control us. And that is fear. All of us have experienced fear in some form or another. It has kept us from trying new things. It has hurt our friendships. It has created a script in our head that convinces us of things about us or our lives that just aren't true. The crazy thing about fear is that our ability to experience it is something that makes us human. Think about it. Our fear comes from the fact that we can gather information and think about the future. As humans, we can wonder, what if this happens? Or that happens, and that makes us afraid. We are where we are today because the human race has been able to accumulate knowledge, build on that knowledge, and then project it into the future. It's why we have continued to develop and change develop and change as a human race. The same ability that allows us to fear allows us to imagine, have hope, and dream, which are great things. So our ability to gather information and think about the future has two sides, the fear side and the hope side. And I think we would all agree that the hope side is pretty awesome. We love imagining, dreaming, and inventing. But then we have the fear side. The side that comes up with all the what ifs. And we all know that the what ifs make us feel a bit crazy. They make our world shrink into our world until our world is pretty much made up of whatever is making us afraid. Think about the last thing you were afraid about and how much your day was spent overthinking and stressing over it. That midterm? That final? What is going back to school with certain pandemic going to look like? Does he or she like me back? Will we ever make it out of this pandemic? Now, if you're anything like me, it's most of your day. You're thinking about it, working through scenarios, planning on what to do or say. Now, I can tend to do this. And I wouldn't say most of my day, but there are chunks of my day, and especially at night. That's when my brain is most active. We're thinking about it, working through scenarios, planning out what to do or say, especially as an introvert who doesn't always speak out. I'll spend 5 minutes trying to figure out what to say, but then the conversation's moved on. It's because I fear what I say is going to get turned down or not heard. But that's what happens when fear takes over us. Our world gets really small. Our world becomes the fear. But here's some good news. Jesus had a lot to say about fear. The problem is we tend to read the verses where he talks about fear by themselves. And when we do that, they sound nice, but they don't seem possible or practical. For example, Jesus said, "Fear not." In other words, when it comes to fear, just stop and quit. It's not exactly helpful, right? So today I want to look at a passage where Jesus talks to some of his close friends about fear, but with, hopefully, a little more context. Now, as a lot of you know, and most of you should actually know, Jesus had 12 main people who followed him around and learned from him. He was their teacher, and they were his disciples. They also happened to be his close friends. And at one point, he tells them this, and then we can find this in Matthew 10, verse 16. Let's look at it in Matthew 10, verse 16. "I'm going to send you out like sheep among wolves." Think about it. Wolves are predators, and sheep are prey. So Jesus is like, you guys are the prey, and I'm going to let you loose with a bunch of predators. You know, the ones that you'd usually run away from. And then he gets more literal. He tells them that they will also be arrested and beaten. And to wrap it all up, he tells them not to be afraid. Sounds easy, right? We tend to read the story and stop there. But when you look at it in context, this is just a part of a bigger story. Jesus took his friends on, well, a field trip before this conversation. And it was all connected. They were in a boat in the middle of the Sea of Galilee. And while they were there, Matthew, one of Jesus' disciples, said this happened. This is Matthew 8, verse 24. "Suddenly, a furious storm came up on the lake, so that the waves swept over the boat." You see, Jesus and his disciples are on a small boat in the middle of the water, and without a warning, a storm shows up. Think about all the noise from the waves, the wind, the rain, and the thunder. They are all in the boat, in the middle of it. They aren't like close by. There's no motor. This is not exactly a luxury cruise either. And what is Jesus doing in the middle of this crazy storm? Some of you know the story, but yeah, Jesus is sleeping. Can you imagine? The disciples were scared out of their minds, quite frankly, worried about their lives, and their fearless leader was sleeping right through it. So naturally, they wake him up. Casually, they head over to Jesus and say, "Hey, Jesus, can you help us?" No, that's not what they do. Let's continue. Matthew 8:25. "Lord, save us. We're going to drown." The disciples are frustrated. They feel alone. And most of all, they are terrified. And they want their leader to calm them down. And what is he doing? The most calm thing of all. He's sleeping. And how does he respond in the next verse? "You of little faith, why are you so afraid?" I can only imagine the disciples' response when he asked this. They had to stand there, soaked to the bone from the rain, wobbling around by the waves, and just looking around them. Everything is going wrong. But Jesus wasn't paying attention to what was in front of them. He was teaching them something. He was teaching them about fear. So he gets up, but he doesn't panic, which is used to kind of make a point. No matter how scary the circumstances, Jesus stays calm. Then Matthew says that Jesus spoke to the wind and the waves, and they calmed down. And the disciples were amazed. They responded by saying this in chapter 8, verse 27. "What kind of man is this? Even the wind and the waves obey him." Then they thought about what they just saw. This is unbelievable. The wind and the waves obey him. Now they weren't just amazed. They were afraid. Like, who is this man who can calm a storm? He has such power, and he used it to take care of them. And he was never afraid. In a moment, their confidence in Jesus overwhelmed their fear of the storm. And that's the point of this little field trip Jesus took them on. To show them that their feelings of fear didn't have to control them or boss them around. To show them that there is someone bigger and more capable than whatever they are afraid of. Now back to that conversation we talked about earlier, where Jesus says that he is going to send them out like sheep among wolves. Jesus follows that up by saying this. Remember, we're back in Matthew chapter 10, verses 28 now. Do not be afraid of those who kill the body, but cannot kill your soul. In other words, if you're going to fear something, might as well make sure it's the right thing. A storm isn't nearly as big as God. And these dangerous situations I'm sending you out into, like sheep among wolves, don't be afraid, because they aren't as big as God either. It's like he was saying, remember that boat ride? You were afraid of the wrong thing. Sure, you had a right to be afraid, but didn't you know that there was someone with you who was more powerful than the storm? And Jesus continues in Matthew chapter 10. Are not 2 sparrows sold for a penny? Yet not one of them will fall to the ground outside your Father's care. And even the very hairs of your head are all numbered. So don't be afraid. You are worth more than many sparrows. Jesus is saying God is paying attention to you. Don't be afraid. You're worth more than the sparrows. Don't be afraid. God has numbered the hairs on your head. Don't be afraid. He's reminding us and says you are valuable to him. God is close. He knows your circumstances. He's concerned with what happens in your everyday life, your real life. He cares about what you care about. When it comes to dealing with fear, this is a big deal because God knows all about it and is with you in the middle of it. But Jesus isn't done teaching them about fear. They go on another field trip. Jesus has been preaching all day. It's starting to get late, and people are getting tired and hungry. The disciples suggest that they send everyone home to eat, but Jesus seems to think that they can feed everyone, which, by the way, sounds crazy, because no one has enough food or money to make that happen. Now, this wasn't a small group of people. We're talking about thousands of people. So again, the disciples are afraid. How will they make this happen? How can they possibly feed everyone? But then Jesus gets a little boy's lunch. He prays over it, and then Matthew says that Jesus split the boy's lunch between the 12 disciples and told them to feed the crowd. And as we know from this very famous miracle, it worked. Everyone got fed. But before they have time to stay and enjoy it, Jesus tells the disciples to get in another boat. And they're probably thinking, all right, Jesus, this is too soon. I don't want to get back in the boat. I know a lot of us are fishermen, but come on, you know what happened last time. But they get in the boat anyway, and plot twist, Jesus doesn't get in with them. He tells them that he'll meet them on the other side of the Sea of Galilee. So the disciples spend the night rowing or sailing. We don't really know what type of boat it is. And at some point in the night, you know what happens. The waves get bigger, the wind blows, and they have to be thinking, great, we are here again in another storm, but this time there's no sleeping Jesus. There's literally no Jesus with us. And then they look out on the water, and they can't believe what they see. It's Jesus walking on water. Matthew records that the disciples were terrified, obviously. In fact, they thought that they saw a ghost. But then Jesus says something that gets their attention because they'd heard it before. And we're in Matthew 14, verse 27. Take courage. It is I. Don't be afraid. This is Jesus trying to remind them all of the lessons and the field trips they've had up to this point. They saw miracles, heard the teaching, and yet still fear was in control of them. In fact, fear even controlled them after this trip. They remained fearful to the very end of Jesus' life. But when we fast forward to the night that Jesus was arrested, we see that the disciples, they abandoned Jesus. Why? Because they were afraid that if they stayed close by, they might get arrested too. And then Jesus was crucified. And where were they? They left because they were afraid. The next day after Jesus was buried, where were the disciples? They were hiding in a room because, they were afraid. I'm sure I would have been too. It's human nature, and I totally understand. But then Sunday came around, and the women who had followed Jesus went to the tomb and discovered that it was empty. They came back and told the disciples. So the disciples went to the tomb, saw that it was empty, and thought that someone had stolen the body. But then Jesus himself appeared before them, and they realized that he is alive. And here's the deal. When the guy you've been following dies and then comes back to life, suddenly everything he has said to you before seems more real, more true, and more believable. Suddenly, all the times he told them not to be afraid made sense. He could conquer death itself, so he can handle whatever they were afraid of. You see, for the disciples who loved and followed Jesus, the resurrection wasn't just a nice surprise. It was everything. It made them bold, gave them strength, and put everything Jesus said about fear into perspective. And their world was still crazy, but because of the resurrection, the disciples and anyone who followed Jesus could put their fear in its place. It was like they finally understood the lesson from the boat when all things around them seemed so much bigger and scarier than they could handle. Now Jesus' words made sense. Fear not, I am with you. Took a whole new meaning. We know this is true because after the resurrection, the disciples came out of hiding. They didn't run away from the authorities. They started preaching to them. And these followers of Jesus ended up changing the world. And heck, it's the reason I'm doing this message today. And why is that? Because they started to live as though they believed what Jesus had told them over the course of their time together. Fear not. They lived afraid of nothing, not even death, because they followed a man who had died and came back to life. All of a sudden, nothing seemed as scary anymore. Not because there was nothing to be afraid of, but because God was clearly bigger than their biggest fears. The thing is, we all know that fear will always be a part of our experience. Fear is part of what makes us human. It will always be there to some degree. And sometimes fear helps us because helps protect us. But we don't have to live like fear is in charge of us and telling us what to do. There's a guy named Peter who was one of Jesus' closest friends and one of those disciples. He was there with Jesus during the miracles, the boat rides, and he made promises to Jesus that he didn't keep. He said he'd never deny knowing Jesus, then he denied Jesus 3 times. He said that he'd stay focused on what Jesus told him was going to happen, but then panicked when Jesus was arrested and cut a dude's ear off. He said he'd always be there for Jesus, but then hid in fear after Jesus died. Yeah, that Peter. But after the resurrection, everything changed. Fear no longer controlled Peter. So he gave some tips about fear in a letter that he wrote to Christians who never had the chance to meet Jesus. Peter says this in, 1 Peter 5:7. Cast all your anxiety on him because he cares for you. When Peter says cast, he means throw, hurl, heave. These are active and intentional words. He means that this doesn't happen by accident. Be active with your fear. When you feel anxiety, fear, or worry, take it and throw it to Jesus. Why? This is the most important part. Peter experienced this firsthand in the 3 years he spent with Jesus. We throw our fears on him because he cares for us. Remember it this way. Because of Jesus, fear doesn't have to be the boss of you. Because of Jesus, fear does not have to be the boss of you. So here's what I want you to do. When fear becomes the vibe that takes over your life and starts to control you and how you act, I want you to do this. Very similar to what we talked about the last few weeks. But name whatever it is that you're afraid of. Put words around it. Write it down. If you like to write on paper, pull out that journal. If you're more of a notes on your phone, type it out. But write something along the lines of, I'm afraid of blank. I'm afraid if that happens, then blank will happen. No, I'm not actually afraid of blanks. Those are just insert word here. And putting words in front of you and what has caused you to be so afraid. Then throw that fear to Jesus and write it down. You can say something like this. You can write this down and say, Jesus, I'm giving you my fear of, insert fear here. I'm afraid of all that stuff I wrote before, but those are what-if situations. Here's what is true. You care for me. And even though it doesn't feel like it, I'm choosing to believe that you're bigger than any fear I face. Since you defeated death, you can handle my fear. I give it to you. Please replace my fear with confidence in you. I trust you. Talk to a small group leader about your fear. Your small group leader is here for you. And heck, if you haven't joined small groups, come join us for small groups. Come join us for life groups. We want to pray alongside you for your confidence in Jesus to be larger than whatever you're afraid of. And when you invite your small group leaders into your fear, you're inviting in another person who can remind you whenever you get afraid again of what is true. So as we wrap up today, I hope you remember that these vibes, these feelings, these emotions that we have don't have to control us, especially fear. They're never meant to make us who we are. They are, however, invitations to pay attention. So while we can learn from our emotions, we need to know that because of Jesus, they don't have to be the boss of us. Now, this week, for small groups, be bold and courageous enough to share those fears with everyone. Together, all of us, we can help each other. Fear not. Let's pray. Lord, we all have fears. We all have fears of uncertainty, of messing up, of screwing up, of saying the wrong thing, or if we do something wrong, someone's going to get mad at us. But as we've learned today, please help us to understand to fear not, to not be afraid. And yes, I know you say that in the Bible, but we've looked at context today. And Lord, I just pray that we can remember today to fear not. And when we do fear, pray that we can have people to reach out to help us through that. Pray that we can reach out to you as well. Thank you for this time. We pray for an awesome week this week. And it's in your Son's name we pray. Amen. Well, I have a special guest right now. She's got her mini ears on. You want to say hi? I know, because they're watching us. Can you say hi? Anyways, I hope that was a good where you can take the Bible and you can look at it, and Jesus says, I'm going to send you out like sheep among wolves. But he prepared the disciples, and he prepared them for that moment. And we can look at the Bible, and we can prepare ourselves for that moment, because of Jesus, we don't have to let fear control us. Now, I think last week I kind of showed you, and you might have heard in the background some hammering going on. So I did tease this in the beginning, but I tried starting recording this message at least twice, and I wanted to share that with you. So you'll notice a couple of times here where I tried to start it but got interrupted. So check this out. Here we go. Number two. Okay. You're going to hear some screwing. Let's see. Hopefully it's not too bad. Have you ever really wanted to do or try something, but you just couldn't convince yourself to do it? Or have you ever been so scared to fail at something that you don't even try? The line of, there is no point to even trying it, I can't do it anyways. Reminds me a little bit of like how some kids... No joke. This is literally happening right now. Let's try this again. Have you ever really wanted to do or try something, but you just couldn't convince yourself to do it? Or have you ever been so scared to fail at something that you don't even try? There's that line of, there's no point in even trying it. I can't do it anyways. It kind of reminds me a little bit of like how kids eat. Or more specifically, how Lorelai tends to eat. We'll make some food that isn't mac and cheese. Or maybe it's something else she likes. And offer it to her, and she just says, no, I don't like it. Yeah, so I like how I tried to do that 3 times, and my favorite line of, I shouldn't even try, what's the point? Because it kept going and going, and luckily I did get a chance to record it. Lorelai liked hearing the little sound. That was funny. So, yeah, join us. Like Angela said, join us at life groups. I wish I could be there to do this discussion, but we're actually going into, that's our scheduled day. We're gonna go into the hospital. So yeah, I hope that all of you have a great couple of weeks. I'm looking forward to. I'll make sure I hear from the leaders and hear how your conversations go. And yeah, have a wonderful week. And we'll keep you up to date on what's happening with us, right, Lorelai? And can you say goodbye, friends? And say see you later.
See you later.
Everyone have a wonderful week. We'll see you later.